A lot of people get financial advice from outsiders. If maybe a financial planner, or a stockbroker, or a real estate broker, but they're not on the inside of the deal. And one of the reasons I like being an entrepreneur and being a real estate guy is I'm always trading from the inside. I know the deal, I'm part of the deal, I am the deal, Number one is investing, invest in what you love. I love business. I love real estate. I really love it. I own this building here. And I love gold and silver. So I invest in what I love. Most people say, do what you love, but I rather invest in what I love. But I love being an entrepreneur. I love investing. It's like Shark Tank to me. I'm always looking at new businesses, new deals. It's just a game like this. But the average person who buys like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and saves money, they're outsiders. They have no idea what's going on between them and the real world of insight. So Jim Rickards and Nomi Prince, they were, Jim was with the CIA, Long-Term Capital Management, the Pentagon, and they're the inside on what's going on with money. Nomi Prince was with Solomon and Lehman Brothers and Goldman Sachs. They're insiders. And I was this little guy on the outside trying to figure out, what are those guys doing? When you look at the financial statement, that's like a scorecard. It's like your golf scorecard is your financial statement. But as you know, our schools teach us nothing about financial statements. That's why, most guys, most major league athletes are broke within 6 years or something? Yeah, because money never makes you rich. And so the thing is to invest in your life experiences, your mentors. So the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is choosing between two different teachers. Someone's like, what's the wizard doing? How is the wizard pulling these handles and all this? And we're all outside jumping around doing as they tell us. You should save money. Okay, I'll save money. You should buy stocks. Okay, I'll buy stocks. You should put some money in bonds. Okay, I'll buy. And I said, there's a wizard in there. I want to know who that wizard is. And so Jim and these guys are as close to the wizard as I could get. If I followed my poor dad, I'd probably be a government employee in Hawaii, or a tenured teacher.
Yeah.
So it's a hard choice. You got to choose your teachers wisely. I made a fortune in 2008. 2020, I'm making more money and I'm paying less taxes. It doesn't mean I don't have problems, but I'm prepared for this. My biggest problem right now is because everybody's taking a vacation, I can't get enough product. I'm selling out. My cash flow game is sold out. Well, I wasn't poor by most people's standards, but I came from a family with a poor attitude, if you know what I mean. Because rich, poor, middle class, poverty starts with a fundamental attitude. So I was in Hawaii, I was 9 years old. My father was the head of education, PhD. My poor dad, my PhD father, he always said to me, he says, I'd be a rich man if I didn't have you kids. And I said, well, Dad, it's not my fault you had kids. I just can't afford it because I have kids. And the more he said that, the angrier I got. Very smart man, good guy. And for some reason, we moved across town and I went to a school with rich kids. So this is a little town called Hilo, Hawaii. That's not on the map anywhere, but it is. It's a sugar plantation town. So when I was 9 years old, I moved to this rich kid's school. And suddenly I realized I was poor because it's relative, as Einstein is all relative. So when I met my rich dad at age 9, he says, well, that's why your old man's poor, because he's lazy. He thinks his PhD is going to carry him. He says, everybody can say, I don't have money, I can't afford it. He says, that's why he's poor. He's lazy. But my father kept going back to school, Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern. He never learned any of this stuff. And my classmates were mostly white guys. And I was one of the few Asians in the class. And these guys, their fathers owned the banks, they owned the plantations, they owned the car dealerships, they owned the meat packing company, they owned the ranches. And I'm going, how come my dad doesn't own that? So I remember raising my hand when I was 9 years old, talking to my fourth grade teacher, and I said, when am I going to learn about money? And she was this woman who should have retired 50 years earlier. She was so sick and tired of kids by this time. She says, the love of money is the root of all evil. They still don't know it because most teachers want a paycheck, pension, and tenure. They want job security. So the mindset is different. I took 3 companies public through Toronto. First through VC, Vancouver Stock Exchange, and I had to migrate to the Toronto Stock Exchange. Why did I do that? To learn how to raise capital on public markets. Now the average entrepreneur never does that. They keep opening a pizza shop and they open 2 pizza shops. And that's about it. Because they're into just for the money. I wanted to learn something, so I took my first was an oil company in Portugal, and I took that public, and everybody told me there's no oil in Portugal, and I found out the hard way. They're right, there's no oil there. That company crashed and burned like a airplane coming out of the sky, And I said, what am I, in Sunday school? And I was this punky little 9-year-old kid. And she says, we don't teach money at school. I said, why not? And she couldn't answer me. And she got very flustered. She said, sit down, take your seat. And then I got curious. I said, why don't we learn about money? She says, go ask your father. He's my boss. So my father was the head of education, PhD, all that stuff. I go home and ask him, I said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and says, because the government doesn't let us teach that subject. The government tells us what we can teach and what we can't teach. And then the next thing, I started a silver company in Argentina, and we struck silver, and we did very well. Yeah. And then I started a gold company in China, and the Chinese took it. So that was a priceless experience. Aren't you bitter? I go, yeah, but that's what I did it for. You understand that? I did it for that. The tax department, which every country has taxes, determined they want to know what kind of income do you work for. So when you say to someone your age or a child to the parent to the child, they say, go to school, get a job. They're working for this type of income. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job. I said, but you get a job to earn money. He goes, no, you're supposed to just get a job. I went, no. Isn't the purpose of a job to earn money? He goes, you're correct. I said, so why don't I just learn about money? I can skip the job part, Earned income, as you can see from this diagram here, this is earned income here. And the first thing you pay is the highest taxes, because you worked for money.
Yes.
The government doesn't want you working for money. Yeah. They punish you for that. They want you to hire employees or invest. Okay, so earned income is what they work for. The second, and he got flustered and he said, look, and my father was, for Japanese, very tall, 6'4", and imposing man, good guy. But he says, if you want to learn about money, why don't you ask your best friend's father about money? And I said, why? That's Mike. So why ask him? He says, because Mike's father is an entrepreneur. And I said, what are you? He says, I'm an employee. I'm a government employee. This portfolio income, it's also called capital gains. So if I buy a house for, let's say, $100,000, I sell it for $200,000, the $100,000 is capital gains. If I buy a stock for $10 and sell it for $20, the $10 is the capital gains. This is the second highest taxed. So the tax breaks that President Trump is working on today is primarily for these guys here. So they're doctors, lawyers, highly educated people, and they have stocks. Most of these guys don't have stocks of the working class. They have a 401k, but they don't get the break. But these guys, if you're active in stocks and that kind of stuff, or flipping houses, you get a break. But what the really rich work for is, I went, oh, what's the difference? This is the difference is an entrepreneur must know about money, or they're no longer entrepreneurs. And he says an employee doesn't have to know anything about money, because the government will take care of them, the company will take care of them. So I'm all confused. And passive income, for me, I have a business, whether I work or not, money comes in.